So I'm very happy to be here with you today. I've worked with Mrs. Flynn now for many years. Typically, this is the day where I'd be talking to all of you live in the Student Center at Montclair State, and then you'd have the opportunity to go into the 7th floor of University Hall and get a chance to do some interviewing with some different districts in hope of landing your teaching job. Well, unfortunately, some germs had some other ideas, and so here we are today trying to do our best through the Zoom conference. So what I'm going to do for all of you today is share some of the advice and ideas that I have that hopefully can help you, and I've modified it understanding that the environment right now is a little bit different than it would be obviously a month ago when things were going to be. So I know Mrs. Flynn is going to moderate the chat if you have questions. So here's what I'm going to kind of do. I have a slide deck I'm going to walk you through. And then at the end, I'll be happy to take questions from people who have. Bear in mind, I don't have the answer. I have some answers, but it may not be the answer for you. I'll do my best to offer you some advice in this challenging time on hopefully finding the teaching job that you're looking for. So with that, we'll get started. So I'm going to share my screen with everyone so you can see this slide deck here. All right, so I hope everybody can see that. So first of all, if you want to just if you want a screenshot for my contact information there, if you do want to reach out to me with any additional questions, I'll get back to you as soon as I can for that. There's both my regular work email as well as my Montclair email. So just some ground rules as far as all this goes. So I'll talk to you about some general education job search strategies, especially for those of you who are looking for jobs now in April, May, and beyond, and what online interviewing might be like. And then I'll give you some tips for some online interview success. And then we'll have some time at the end for questions and answers you may have using the chat feature, which I'll respond to. All right, so for starters, do your homework. Believe it or not, even with all this what's going on, school districts are still recruiting for next year. I know my district, for example, we are currently looking for about 7 different positions, and we've had our ads in the newspaper. So the first place you should be looking, besides, Montclair listings or NJ Hire, I know the job session at Montclair is putting out listings of districts that are hiring, but the Star Ledger typically should be your Bible. If you don't currently subscribe to the Star Ledger, you should. On Sundays in the job section, almost every school district in the state of New Jersey will publish jobs that are open in the Star Ledger. So start with that. And then once you figure out that you want to apply for some of those jobs, do your homework. And so that means don't just blindly send out cover letters to every job. Find out about that district. You know, obviously, school districts' websites are a wealth of information. And so go on those websites, find out what their mission statement is. What is their vision? What are current challenges that they are facing? What are things that that they're working towards? Do they have a new technology initiative? Do they have a brand new math curriculum? What's something that you might be able to work into your cover letter when you upload it into Apple Track or somewhere else that shows that you're specifically addressing that school? And I'll use it as a little analogy. I have 2 children, one who is a high school junior, and she's currently starting her college search. And the advice that her guidance counselors gave to her is, when she's applying to colleges, make sure that she explains in her essay why she wants to go to the university of whatever, as opposed to any university. And so they say that the more personal connections you can make to people you're applying to, the better off you're going to be, because it shows it's not just a form letter, that you've done your homework about that district. And so to that, personalize and customize what it is you're going to send. If it's by mail, great. And if it's an Apple Track, that's fine. So in your cover letter, I know that there are plenty of cover letters available online. My advice is do not take a cover letter from online and simply drop in particulars. As a person who reads hundreds of these letters a year, I will tell you, I know where you got it from. Be a good writer, write the cover letter that it needs to have. And really there's 3 main parts. It's the introduction of you and what you're applying for, The middle paragraph tells me a little bit about you, a couple of sentences that I might not be able to see on your resume, but it's going to make me want to read your resume. And number three, expressing your interest for the position and hoping that they'll contact you. That's really what it comes down to. Should not be more than a page. Keep it standard 12-point font. Really, I will tell you this, the worst kept secret in education is the purpose of the cover letter is a couple things. Number one, do you know how to write? If you don't know how to put together a cogent sentence, we're going to have questions if you should be in front of a group of students. So make sure that your English is correct, your diction is good, your spelling is accurate. Make sure that it's addressed to the right person. Do not put a cover letter to whom it may concern. If the ad doesn't have a name on it, find out who the name of the superintendent is or the name of their director of human resources and put that person's name and title. And please make sure that you've spelled it right. I don't have the easiest last name in the world to spell, and I will tell you that if someone butchers my last name, that's a quick way for me to say this is not a person who pays attention to detail. So please take that extra time if you're applying for a job, proofread your letter, check that your spelling and addresses are correct, especially if you're applying to multiple jobs, and this can happen. Sometimes people, if they're sending out letters to 10 different districts, have 10 different letters. I've gotten cover letters that they meant to send to another district. Make sure you're uploading the right file to the right places. Don't be in such a rush that you make a careless mistake. So we want to know about you. I find that when I meet people who are teachers, they are fabulous storytellers, and I want to hear their stories. I want people teaching my students and my own personal children who are interesting and passionate. So the question is, what is it about you that's interesting and passionate? Obviously within reason. Are you a rock climber? Do you do community service? Did you work in a summer camp? Have you had a part-time job your whole life? Have you traveled the world? Did you have a former career somewhere? What is it about you that you can bring to the classroom to add to that story? We're going to assume that you know how to teach, and we're going to find that out. But what I want to find is, are you interesting? Are you passionate about something? What is it about you? Because it's really, we want to instill passion in our students, and I want to know what you're passionate about. So whether it's in your cover letter that you describe that, or maybe it's in your resume as an other skills bullet point, make sure that that comes out clear in your written correspondence, because it's that written correspondence that's going to get you the interview. And then if you get the interview, it's those points that are going to give me things to ask about. So for example, if on your resume, you've listed that you've free climbed El Capitan in 7 hours, and if you did that, that's really cool, by the way. That's one thing I'm immediately going to ask you as my first question before I even get into your theories of pedagogy and your theories of educational technology. Like, wow, how the heck did you climb this mountain in 7 hours? And that's going to break the ice for me. So have something on your resume that allows the interviewer to break the ice with a softball question that I can find out something really interesting about you. Don't have it be wacky. Like, I would probably keep it to yourself if you have the world's largest collection of Star Wars figures and you have 1,400 Yoda dolls in your basement. While that might be interesting, I would probably keep that off your resume. So just a tip there, keep it interesting and passionate, but within reason. Nothing against fans of Yoda, by the way. I think Baby Yoda is adorable, but not a million figurines of Baby Yoda. All right, so this one's going to be important. So because we're not going to maybe get a chance to meet with you in person, we're going to do some massive detective work on you. So that means do an online profile check for yourself. Take a look at your Twitter account, your Facebook, your Snapchat, your TikTok, your Instagram, whatever you happen to be on, and ask yourself, can I find anything about you that you're not going to be happy about? So if you've got photos of you on spring break from last year that you'd rather not an administrator see, get them off. If you've got some content upline that you think paints you in a not so fantastic picture, get rid of them. Understand that most of us are pretty computer savvy, and I can find out a lot about people really quickly. I am on all these different accounts, most of them just so I can check out on people that we're interviewing for. So understand it's fine to have social media, but understand that if you've got some extreme views or extreme pictures, you may want to sanitize those a little bit before you go looking for your job. Related to that, here's something that I shared last year. With the hashtag Friday night, which of these 4 pictures do you think is going to be best helping you not get a job? That you're working at a pet shelter, that you're working to end hunger, that you're, you know, thinking about some old friends, or you're out partying with bottles. And ask yourself, you know, and again, listen, everyone likes to have a good time, and I'm not faulting you for that. Just ask yourself what that looks like in your online profile, because as soon as you start teaching, guess what? Every single one of your students is going to online check for you also. You don't want to be that person who's got that unflattering photo showing up on that first day of school. So do a check on yourself, Google yourself, check all your social media, make sure that it looks really good and it presents the picture you want. Little pro tip, if you have some things on social media that you're looking to change around, I don't know if you've ever heard of a company called Reputation Defender. I'm not advocating for that particular company, but I just know of them. They tend to, if you've got some things that are unsavory, they help you clean up. And one of the tips that I've stolen from them is put things on your social media that paint you in a positive picture and will come up faster in a search. So for example, if you do volunteer work, have some pictures or statements about your volunteer work on your Twitter, on your Instagram. If you follow really well-known educational theorists, interact with them on Twitter, so that pops up earlier. So put positive stuff out there, be your own PR agent, and have positive stuff out on your social media, and swipe out the negative as best you can. So here comes the tricky one, how to dress for an online interview. So I noticed as some people were popping in on this, some of you I saw threw on ties and some professional wear, some of you were in home comfy clothes, and there's no judgment today. This is a get-together seminar. I will tell you, I dressed up for today. Typically, I've been working at home doing online work with my school district, and I've been going to work in elastic waist pants every single day and loving it. That's one silver lining about this current epidemic is I've been living in sweats for the past couple of weeks. However, knowing that I'm addressing a professional audience, I threw on some professional clothes. I did opt not to wear the tie. I hope you're not offended, but I could only take it so far on an interview the same way you would dress for an in-person interview. Take that extra time. If you're going to wear a tie, wear a tie. If you're going to wear a jacket, a dress, a nice blouse, that's fantastic. As we know from webcams, and this is meant as a joke, pants are optional because no one really knows what you're wearing. I will advocate wearing pants. Pants are a good idea because you never know when you need to get up. And you certainly don't want to be that person who suddenly makes the mistake when your cat runs into the room and you have to stand up to shoo your cat out of the room and they suddenly realize that you're wearing not pants and you don't want to be that person. So my professional advice to you is dress professionally and wear pants. Shoes, optional, because I don't think anyone's going to see that, but that's your choice, of course. So again, dress really well for that online interview, dress for the job the way you would in person. All right, so I used to always tell people when you were meeting in person, the interview starts with the secretary. You may or may not be meeting a secretary as part of this. The person who's interviewing may just do kind of a direct drop in on your webcam. So if you have a secretary and they're kind of in a waiting room with them, by all means, start conversations with them, make a good impression with the secretary. But the other part is, and this is always good advice in general, check your webcams and your microphones beforehand, do your sound checks, and check your background. So what I mean by that is right now I'm speaking to you from inside my home office. So right now I don't think I have anything objectionable in my home office. I think I've just got a nice blue wall behind me. If I were in my kitchen, I would want to make sure that all the wine bottles and assorted beverage bottles that might have been consumed over the past week or so are off the counter before I talk to in a professional environment. So make sure that you've cleared out anything behind you that might paint the wrong picture for an interviewer. If you've got a poster on the wall that maybe doesn't paint a flattering picture, or you just haven't done laundry in 2 weeks, which someone I might know might have done that, make sure your dirty laundry's out of the way. So check the cam behind you and make sure that the wall or whatever is there is good for a screen. A blank wall is best, or at least something that's non-objectionable. So that's really important. Again, you want to have your best foot forward when you're interviewing. Just some other things, good tasks for Zoom interviews and just interviews in general. Lose the gum. You don't want to be or eating food or having a snack while you're on a web conference. I really don't want to see what you had for breakfast falling out of your mouth. Water is not a bad idea, especially if you're going to be talking a lot. And yes, that is water in my water bottle, I swear. So water is going to be a good thing. Keep yourself hydrated, but the idea is, in general, don't do anything that's going to cause a mess for you or cause yourself to splash food on yourself or drink on yourself while you're working. You want to be able to have good conversations. All right, so at your fingertips, and by this I mean you almost know what questions are going to come at you. You know you're going to get asked what your theories on education are. You know you're going to get asked how you engage students. You know you're going to get asked how you can make adaptations for special education students. You know you're going to get asked how you use technology. If you don't know that that's what you're going to get asked, start Googling some teacher interview questions. They are out there. They're generally not a mystery. But have those answers to those questions at your fingertips. And for every question you're asked, don't lose that opportunity to give an example from your student teaching experience or from something that you've done that helps to illustrate that point. So for example, if you're asked, so tell me how you effectively use educational technology. Well, if you've been doing distance learning right now during COVID, I would think that's going to be fantastic to share. If you were using educational technology before all this, you're going to talk about ways that you use various software or apps or Chromebooks or Google Docs or whatever it may be in your classroom and have that readily available. And since now we have the amazing ability to share our screens, have some of those windows available, whether it's with pictures or lesson plan examples or what would normally be your big portfolio, you now have available in Windows to quickly share your screen or hold up in the screen to show the details of those questions that you're being asked. And sort of related to that, the idea is that, and again, here we're back to Yoda. That was purely coincidental. I was mentioning Yoda before. The idea is that any portfolio that you have is a tool. I can't tell you how many times I used to have student teachers come in for interviews with these really, really big binders, and they would drop it on the table and we'd go through the interview and I'd finish up. And after 30 minutes, I'd say, do you have any questions for me? And they'd say, oh, would you like to look at my portfolio? And I'd look at them back with a big smile and say, no, I don't want to look at your portfolio. We're out of time. So what that means is use your portfolio as a tool during the interview. As questions come up that are related to questions you're being asked and you've got some evidence in your portfolio that makes a really good visual, like I shared before, maybe take some digital photos or PDFs and have them available on your screen to share, because if you just hold it up, I don't think it's going to be the same. So have them on your screen ready to share, or say, I've got them right now as digital file. I'm going to shoot you an email real quick. Take a look on your email. That might be another way that you might be able to make that work. All right, so clearly the fact that you all were able to log into a Zoom meeting, that's a really good thing. Certainly, you need to be able to handle a Zoom or Google conference. I can tell you every person I'm interviewing right now for jobs, I'm asking them that, if you were doing distance learning right now, what would you be doing? And I'm looking to see how they would handle this situation. So I'm gonna drop that advice, think about the answer to that question, and make sure that you've gotten good at Google or Zoom conferencing. So that means if you haven't done this in a while, or you're just getting new to this, practice with someone. Even if it's a friend or a family member in the other room in your house, have some conferences and practice interviews on Zoom. It's different than live. Plus, the added bonus is you get to see yourself. So unlike in an interview, you have no clue what your facial gestures look like or how you look in your brand new shirt. This is an opportunity for you to get instant live feedback from yourself in practice of your posture, your voice, your form, how you happen to look. So thinking about technology and how you're going to use it in the interview, practice it. It's definitely a good thing that's in your favor. So the concept of a thank you note in my mind is really a lost art. When I was a little kid and my grandparents used to give me birthday presents, my parents would make me write handwritten thank you notes to my grandparents or friends who came for birthday parties. And as a kid, it used to drive me crazy. Now, as a recipient on that end, A, I make my own children write thank you notes, and B, I see the value in it, that it means that someone has taken that extra step to say thank you for an opportunity or something they've done for you. So being that this really is a lost art these days, take the time after an interview to write thank you notes to anyone who was involved in it. Obviously, the person who interviewed you, or if there's a committee, the people who interviewed you, the secretary who maybe helped to set up your Zoom conference call, all good things to send thank you notes for. And in your thank you note, not just, hey, thank you for the interview, I really appreciate it. Never miss an opportunity to sell yourself. So in that thank you note, say, well, yeah, in the interview, I was very excited to hear about your brand new math program. In fact, I used that program during my student teaching, and I'm so excited to bring my familiarity with it to your district. Use that opportunity to sell yourself again. Again, just some other things. Check the outgoing message on your phone, because realize that most people are going to be calling you for information about this interview on your cell phone. If it's, hi, this is John Moyland. I'm not home right now. Please leave a message. And John, you're at the top of my screen, so I just picked on you at the moment. Please leave a message. That's fantastic. I wouldn't be, hey, how's it going? What's up? Call me back. Hit me up. Like, this is not the time to be casual. Have a professional outgoing message on your voicemail with your name so they know they reached the right place. All right, so just some other things, questions I often get. I hope you all get jobs. I know this is a tough time. There are jobs that are out there. This is going to be a strange economic time that I think our state and country are going into, but don't give up. If you don't get a job, keep applying. Don't think that because you don't get a job in the spring that there won't be other opportunities later. Sometimes the best opportunities come in July and August when we realize that perhaps there's a maternity leave, or God forbid someone got sick and can't return to their position, or they're adding sections because of added enrollment. So for that reason, don't give up, keep checking the jobs, keep applying. Even into the school year would be a great idea. So don't give up. There's nothing wrong, if you need to, certainly, with going into a substitute position into the fall to get yourself embedded into a school as necessary. Some people often ask, what about multiple job offers? I get an offer from one district, but I'm really hoping I get it from some other place. Well, that's an enviable position to be in, because at least you've got a job offer. My advice is, in this climate, take the first job you get. You may hope for somewhere else. The last thing you should do, though, is to take a job, you get another job, and drop the first job. I will tell you, the educational community in New Jersey is small, and all the administrators in some way, shape, or form know each other, or at least know each other enough and call each other. If you pull a move or you get a job and leave a district in the lurch, you don't want to be blackballed in the educational community as being seen as someone unreliable. So if you're unsure that you don't want that job, don't take the job. If you apply for the job and you're offered the job, in this climate, my advice is take the job. If at the end of the year it's not the job for you, reapply somewhere else. But at this point, I think it's a good idea to do that. That's just my opinion. Of course, you can take that as you'd like to. For maternity leaves, I know sometimes these jobs are not full year, and people say, well, I've taken a maternity leave and then a full-time position opens up. That's a little bit of a different story. As much as I would hate that if it happened in my district, I do understand that people are looking for full-time jobs versus maternity leaves. Again, in this climate, though, I think that's coming. I think that in many cases, beggars can't be choosers. I would take the positions you're offered, and then when the maternity leave is over, keep looking, especially because you never know if that leave then turns into someone else. We had a teacher who was on a maternity leave in our district last year for 3 months, and then as soon as November was done, we had another teacher who unfortunately got sick and had to take early retirement. That teacher got themselves into a full-time job a week later. So you never know those opportunities that happen. So again, if no job for you happens to work out yet, things that you can look to do, you can substitute, look to coach perhaps in districts and get yourself involved. You can volunteer in districts. They're looking for volunteer coaches or perhaps advisors in other areas. And like I said, there's always August. We've hired people in some cases the day before school started. Sometimes you never know when positions open up. So if things aren't working out as you'd like to, don't give up. There's certainly a strong chance that things could get better, and I certainly hope that they would. So some final thoughts. I know that depending upon how long you've been in your program, this has been 2 to 4 years of a ride for you, and I I feel for you that this is the circumstances that you're searching for your job, and that many of you, your student teaching got preempted. But you'll get there. And trust me when I tell you that people understand the circumstances you're in, and we're being flexible with our teachers, and we will be flexible with you during the job interview. And we're just hoping that we get the best match for the best candidate who's out there. So with that, I guess now is, a good time to take some questions, I guess, from the chat screen.
Thank you, Barry. That was great. I really appreciate it. There is a couple questions that have come up. One is about thank you notes. If you send a thank you note, do you have to send it handwritten, or is it okay to send an email?
So I think both are okay. The part, as we know, with US mail is it may not be the fastest way to go. It's not a bad way if you have the time, and these days a lot of people have some time. Maybe do both. The email is expeditious; it'll get there fast. The thank you note's a little more personal, so maybe just do both. Say, hey, I know I sent you an email, but I'm just reiterating again. But I do think either are fine as long as you do actually do at least one.
The next one is interesting. It's about social media. If your social media accounts are private, is that enough protection for a job interview?
I believe so. Double check your privacy settings though, because there are different levels of privacy settings. Sometimes you have privacy for everybody. Sometimes it's like friend of a friend. Sometimes your account is locked down unless you're invited. So what I would suggest you do is set the privacy settings, then have a friend try to find them for you. And that's your test to see how easy it is to get into your settings that way. Someone who isn't on your social media accounts, like maybe a mom or a dad, or maybe they are on your social media, I don't know, but someone who maybe you don't normally associate with that way, and see what they're able to see. But typically, yes, if your full privacy settings are in effect, that should be enough.
Another one about social media. If you don't use social media, do districts consider that to be suspicious?
That's an interesting question. I've never heard that one before. I would probably do like a Scooby-Doo kind of moment, but thinking that most people tend to have social media these days in some way, shape, or form. However, I wouldn't put that up as a strike on anybody. I would just say, all right, for whatever reason, they've made that choice. So if you're not on social media and you're saying, should I start? I always think Twitter is a great place to put good stuff out there, because most districts are forward in their Twitter presence. But don't think that it's a bad thing if you're not. I wouldn't think that there's something wrong with you. It just means, wow, they've done a good job of covering up the stuff that shouldn't be out there.
Here's an interesting one. Dogs. What if they start barking during the online interview, job interview? Will that be held against you?
I don't think so. I would think as best you can, if you can, be in a room with a door closed, but I understand that you may not have that availability. I would put that out there at the beginning of the interview. I'm a former dog owner, and I love dogs. And my dog, before he was done, he was a terrible barker. So I understand where that comes from. But I would suggest put that out there in the beginning. So if we are interviewing with you, say, listen, my dog is in the other room and I'm hoping he's quiet. And if he barks, I'm really, really sorry, but I'll do my best to keep him quiet. I think it'll be a light moment to break the ice a bit, but you put it out there in advance as opposed to reacting later. Like I said, I think everyone's going to be flexible and understand that we're doing the best we can.
Here's another one. Is it appropriate to ask for feedback if you're not moved to a second round?
I think it all depends. Some districts, and depends on the size of the district. If you're applying to a very large district, for example, like a Newark or a Patterson, where there are, so many schools and so many people interviewing for positions, I can't speak to those districts individually, but I don't know if they have the time necessarily to give feedback. I know that if someone reached out to me with a specific question, I would answer that question. But I think if a candidate called and said, how come you didn't hire me? That's a dicey spot to be in for an interviewer. So I would say if you have a specific question you wanted feedback on, depending on the interviewer, they may answer it for you, they may not. But I wouldn't say, can you tell me why I didn't get the job? I don't think that would be the question to ask. So There's no hard and fast answer to that. I think it depends on the person you're interviewing with and the vibe you got from that person.
Here's another good one. What types of questions should you be prepared to ask interviewers when they ask, do you have any questions for them?
So I would say you want to have 2 questions in your pocket. That's really all you're going to be allowed to do. I know you probably have more, but in reality, think of the 2 questions you most want answered. In a first round interview, I would suggest that those questions somehow can connect back to things that you want to talk about, that somehow show off your strengths. In second round, it's going to help you decide, is this the place you want to work? So think to yourself, what are things you want to know that would be deal breakers one way or the other about working in that particular school? And I can't speak for you what that might be, but say, for example, you really want to work in a district where everyone has their own computer. Well, that would be really important for you to know. The first round interview is not the time to ask about salary or benefits. Appropriate question is always to ask, don't waste a question on what's the time frame for this interview. If they don't ask it, that's not a bad thing to ask on the way out the door, but it's sort of like a genie with 3 wishes. You don't want to say, can I have 3 more wishes? So if you ask questions that you know they're going to say, like one, they're going to tell you, hopefully, when you can expect to hear from them. If you haven't heard that answer, as you get up and you say, all right, I'm going to disconnect off the call, you can say, when can I expect to hear? It can be like the last thing you say at that point. So I'd say have 1 or 2 questions in the pocket ready to ask. And there are things really that are going to really help you sell yourself in the first round or have the district sell you in the second.
Here's a question. I don't know how much time you have, Barry. I just want to give you a time frame. I'm a middle school, high school science teacher interested in a part-time teaching job position. This type of position is almost impossible to find. Any hints on how to find this type of job?
So, I mean, if you're a science teacher, interestingly enough, for part-time teaching, that's going to be challenging. I guess you'll typically see those jobs in late summer, and those come out mostly anytime a part-time job, because that usually means that schools suddenly found out that they've got extra sections they need. We've got a new class section we hadn't anticipated, so we have to add 2 or 3 classes, but not enough for a full-time job. So we tend to see those either now because we just have the budget or in August. There's no secret place jobs are listed. I will tell you that jobs are either on the district websites, they're in the Star Ledger on Sundays, or they're on NJ Hire. I know that Montclair State also tends to keep a good database of job openings as they know them, but there's no super secret place to find jobs. You just have to keep looking at the places and see where those listings are.
Here's one. Any suggestions for summer employment opportunities before we start jobs in the fall?
Anything that can make you money. I think obviously you're going to want to take a job that gives you the flexibility that you can certainly get in for new staff orientations that may be part of things, or setting up classrooms or something like that. Day camp jobs typically are great. As far as school districts go, if you have coaching experience, I know sometimes they look for coaches to start in August. So certainly on your resume, if you've got an athletic or a coaching background, or even interested in coaching in some way, shape, or form, be sure to mention that. And sometimes a lot of the sports seasons start up, assuming we have a sports season this year, in the middle of August.
Here's one that's particularly interesting because of the situation we're in right now. Will districts typically let you, I'm sorry, it just moved. What are your thoughts on recording online interviews? Should that question be posed in an email to the administrator before the interview?
So if I'm guessing on what that person's asking, I think you're saying, like, if I'm in the middle of the interview, should I record the interview that I'm on? I wouldn't, because I mean, pretty much, I'll put it this way: if I were in an interview and I were asked if I can record, I would say I'd really rather you don't. And if you were recording and you kind of secretly, I'm thinking to myself, this is a massive betrayal of trust. Mostly because job interviews are private things, and all of us are in some real uncharted territory. And especially with the concept of legal versus illegal questions that can be asked and not asked. I really wouldn't go there. Certainly if you want to take notes in the interview, I think that's awesome. That's not a bad thing to reflect on what's going on and have a pad of paper nearby to write some things down. But I really wouldn't go into recording. Understand that it's possible that they may record you, or in which case, if that's happening, they should ask you first beforehand, or at least say, this interview is going to be recorded. Do you have a problem with that? And again, that's for them to review the interview later. But from your end, I'd be really careful about that.
I think this one's interesting too. Do schools have candidates conduct demo lessons during the COVID-19 era?
So far, I know that we have started some interviews in our district. By the way, if anyone is either a family and consumer science teacher, a band teacher, or a student assistance counselor, those are positions that my district is looking for. But I know, like, for example, we started doing some interviews. We're doing them as committees. We're doing them on Zoom like this. But demo lessons, we have not asked people to do yet. We did ask people if they have any recordings of themselves doing lessons that they could share with us that they have from their portfolio. And some people have shared those. But as far as demo lessons online through COVID, I haven't seen that yet, but that's not to say that it couldn't happen. You never know, especially in the coming months. But I know that since a lot of districts are more doing asynchronous rather than synchronous learning, I'm not so sure exactly what the focus would be there, but it's possible, but not likely.
Is it acceptable or legal to share our TPA footage?
You know what? I see that question there popping up from Amanda de la Trenta.
Right.
Amanda, I'm not really sure. I'd say that cross-check if you ask, I believe it's Carolyn Murray from Montclair State. She can better answer that question for you. I'm not entirely sure of the legalities of that, to be honest.
Okay. Will districts typically let you know whether you're moving on to a second interview or not?
So I know, again, I can speak to my district and districts I've been a part of over the years. I've always made it a point of letting every candidate who applies know that either they've moved on or that we've hired somebody else. I also know that some districts are not that courteous. Some districts will just, you'll apply and you'll be ghosted by them, unfortunately. There's nothing wrong with reaching out after a reasonable amount of time to your interviewer to saying, what's the status of the job? I would let at least 2 weeks go by and then reach out and say, what's the job status? But I'd say typically if you haven't heard from a district in say 3 or 4 weeks, chances are it's not looking too good.
Okay. Just two more, I think. For coaching, should we keep that cover letter? Should we keep that on our cover letter or put it in the resume as well?
I would say it depends upon if you know if there's already an opening for a coaching position in that district. So for example, let's say you're applying to a district and you're an English teacher and you're also have experience as a baseball coach. And you know that this particular high school has an opening for an English teacher and a varsity baseball coach. I would put them both into the cover letter. They might see that as a kind of an awesome 2-for-1 position. However, if they don't have an opening that's advertised, then I would keep it to your resume. Although it's certainly not a bad thing to put in your cover letter that you have experience coaching, would be open to that possibility. Certainly your resume in both cases, absolutely cover letter if there is a coaching opening you're interested in.
Okay. I think this is the last one. As far as the section of your resume where you would put something passionate about, breaking the ice, to break the ice, where would you put that on your resume?
So I would typically recommend maybe at the bottom of your resume, have like an other skills or interesting facts bullet point or something like that at the bottom, and then maybe put those things like, so I'll share a story just about me. So in addition to my educational career, I'm a volunteer EMT. I run triathlons and I'm a children's book author. So on my resume, I have those as bullet points at the very bottom under other skills. And so I just list those things that I happen to do. So if I ever happen to be looking for a job, and I'm not, thankfully, people could talk about that and say, oh, you wrote a children's book. That's pretty cool. And then I'll say, yeah, go on Amazon. You could buy it. Shameless plug there for a second. But certainly, it's just things that you can take a look at. The question, what book have I written? It's called Please Don't Dance in My Ambulance, and it's available on Amazon if you're interested.
I think there's just this one last one. Would it be okay to make a Google slide presentation similar to your presentation? And how long should it be?
I would say that's a great idea. I would say have it minimized, and then as the interview goes, you could maybe have slides to refer to perhaps. I wouldn't be presumptuous and do a presentation in reverse to the interviewer, but you could mention, but certainly it's not a bad thing to have in your pocket. Like I said, have lots of resources available so you can pull them up as needed.
This last question is about resume writing. And if anybody has any questions, please reach out to me. I'm happy to assist you with your resume, help you with all the bullet points and what you need to be, how you need to format it, what you should include and that type of information. But this, I really don't understand this question, but should we write our student teaching experience on our resumes? The answer is yes, but I'm concerned that maybe someone doesn't realize what needs to be put on the resume. So please reach out to me, Linda Flynn. That's flynnl@montclair.edu, and I'm happy to help you with your resume.
All right. So I think hopefully everyone got a chance to see my email. I'm in the Montclair directory, Bachenheimer. I think I'm the only one. If you have specific questions that might be more individualized, shoot me an email, and I'll certainly get back to you in the next couple of days for anything I can help you with. Certainly, yep, actually someone says, yep, I'll put it right in here. Actually, I'll put it right into the chat. That'd be the easiest thing to do. All right, so there's my email address if you need to reach me, certainly. And I'll just conclude with, this is the word that I keep hearing over and over and over again, and to the point that I'm almost sick of it, but it's the word is unprecedented. I don't think any of us have lived through anything like this in our lifetimes, and I hope we never do again, but I don't envy all of you the fact that you do have to do these job searches in this challenging time. I tell my teachers 3 words every day in my daily message to my teachers, and the 3 words are flexibility, simplicity, and empathy. And if you can use those 3 words in your teaching, and you can use those 3 words to convey throughout your interview process and for yourselves, hopefully that'll be success for you as you go. So good luck to all of you. Best of luck in your job searches. I know Mrs. Flynn and her office have lots of great resources for those of you looking for resume or cover letter help or other suggestions as part of a general job search. And I wish you nothing but success and health as you go forward.
Barry, thank you so much. Dr. Bachenheimer, you did a great job. I really appreciate you taking the time today to do this. Thank you.
My pleasure. Be well, everyone.